Thank you very much, Minasan Ohaya Gadzamas. It's a big honor for me to speak to you today about the issue of extreme seriousness and extreme concern because of war, which is happening in Ukraine for already 5 months. I will present to you a situation in Ukraine, and I will share with you some concerns about future developments with nuclear power plant security in the world. So let me begin from simply saying that the current aggression of Russia against Ukraine, this is the first war in the world history conducted against the country which has nuclear power plants on its territory and 15 operational active reactors, units. In addition to that, we have Chernobyl, which you know was blown up in 35 years ago, and it's still under strict regulation and surrounded with 30 kilometers no-go zone. So all that makes this war extremely dangerous for the humankind. It's not just for Ukraine. Never before the country with such infrastructure was attacked with 3,000 cruise and ballistic missiles, which we accounted today. Consequences of this, that accidents which may happen at every moment in any nuclear station, because Russia already used all its precise munition, and what they do now, they use missiles, very old Soviet outdated missiles, which can hit with preciseness measured in kilometers. So that means that nobody can be sure that nuclear power plant is protected. It is first time in the history as well that a country with nuclear weapons waged a war against another country which has no nuclear weapons and which was given a security guarantees from this nuclear state. So let me remind you that Russia signed Budapest Memorandum, the security guarantees for Ukraine in 1994, given by United States, Britain, and Russia to Ukraine for giving up the third nuclear potential in the world. So that was the idea behind that, was that if a country which has nuclear weapons will give it up, the nuclear states, members, permanent members of the national of the Security Council of United Nations will guarantee its security and sovereignty. This was brutally violated by Russia, actually in 2014. But now what is happening, this is not just an aggression, this is pure terrorism. And this terrorism is very much connected with threat with nuclear threat. So let me show you some pictures to be very precise in what we are talking about. That's the map of Ukraine for nuclear power plants. You see them, and those dots means number of reactors on each station. So in Rivne we have 4 reactors, in Khmelnytsk we have 2, in South Ukrainian nuclear power plant we have 3, and what is the major concern right now for us, that's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant with 6 reactors. This is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, and this is exactly here. Look at this map. This is very fresh map of activities. This is the front line where Russia bombs and fire with missiles, with artillery, and this is a zone where we have very heavy fighting. And this is exactly here where this nuclear power plant is situated. Another one which is under possible attack is South Ukrainian nuclear power plant. Russians tried to take it. The Russians tried to attack it, but they were thrown away and they stop it. So those nuclear power plants, they're more or less secure, more or less, meaning that they are now operational. Ukraine have control over it. We have personnel on those stations, and we bear responsibility of their functioning, and we try to protect them from missiles which could happen, because Russia attacks this part of Ukraine with missiles rather less than in south and east part of Ukraine. So, and another one situation, that's Chernobyl. It's here. This is the capital of Ukraine. This distance is approximately 100 kilometers, and it is here that the territory which was occupied in February. And let me begin from Chernobyl. We will be back to Zaporizhia later. So that's Chernobyl nuclear power plant, and you see Russian tanks on the territory of the station. Pictures are not good because, of course, as you may guess, the personnel of the station was not allowed to make pictures. They were all, actually, the station was taken very quickly in February, and later on, the personnel of the station was locked down, and they kept the people at the station for weeks. But basically, it is very important to understand what is it, the nuclear power plant. There are 4 reactors. One of them, all of them stopped. One of them, reactor number 4, was destroyed in 1986 and now covered with special arc, which was built a couple of years ago. I mean, finally built around this reactor to stop spreading of radiation. Inside these premises, I mean, huge construction. The price tag on this construction is $1.8 billion. Inside it, we have a mass of melted material. It's uranium, it's metal, concrete, everything, which was melted in the mass. Nobody knows how it will behave. So we have special equipment installed to this mass. So there are holes drilled inside the mass. There are very deeply inside. It's warm. It's not hot, but it's warm. So the reaction is still there. The nuclear materials are still working. And the question is, we don't know what will happen inside this mess. The idea to build this construction, to cut it in pieces, in small pieces, to check thoroughly that there is no chance of chain reaction, and to move it and to bury it deeply in the ground. So the point is that the very precise equipment was installed, very, very precious equipment, including those supplied by Japan, to monitor the situation on the station. All this equipment was destroyed and looted by Russians. So right now, we have no idea what is going on inside this mess. So Russia entered this territory, and it looks like, and this is here, video proof of Russian command ordered soldiers to dig fortifications in a territory of so-called Red Forest. Red Forest is contaminated with plutonium. It's 10 centimeters deeply in the soil. And if you touch it, and if it's coming back to air, it can move it can migrate. And this is extremely dangerous. This territory is no-go zone at all. No one ever touched it for 30 years. So Russians dig fortifications in this zone, and they return this plutonium to the surface. And this is another danger which we cannot estimate right now. When they realized they did it, they withdrew immediately, because those people probably were heavily irradiated, and probably they will suffer consequences. So the problem is that what I'm saying, the army, Russian army, approaching this very complicated object of very heavy guarded, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're moving inside with heavy weapons. They attack personnel. They stopped rotation of the personnel because of health of those people. They have to be monitored because it's radiation. They have to be rotated every day. I mean, it's like 24 hours, but they were stopped rotation of this personnel. So that's the consequences of this assault on Chernobyl. And you see here that they looted all the equipment, and they destroyed all the computers, databases. So acting like pure terrorists for no reason. So let's back to Zaporizhia. There's 6 reactors you see on this picture, those 6 units. So you see that they're in very good shape. They're not destroyed. They're very well operated. But what is important, you see those 6 units, they're based on actually on a huge water reservoir here in Zaporizhia. It's actually an artificially created sea on Dnieper River. So if anything happened on this station, the leak of radiation or debris or explosion or whatever, and if this water will be polluted, the Black Sea will cease to exist. All the countries around the Black Sea will have consequences. This is extremely dangerous for any illegal action, any attempt to destroy the unit. And this unit, this station, was brutally attacked with missiles, with grenades, with tanks. And you see here, this is Japanese map, and you see it here where it was, where the station is situated. And this is actually the zone of active military operations. So the station in Zaporizhia was taken on March 4th. March 4th. Since then, they put 500 military personnel, approximately special forces on this station. They brought tons of military equipment, explosions. They put missile launchers in between those units, and they use them to attack our cities around, which is a close proximity on this station. They do it knowing that we cannot attack the station reciprocally because we can harm our own nuclear power plants. Only 2 of those reactors are operational right now, so they're working. 4 are not working, but all of them full of fuel. Now let me tell you, because probably not everyone understands what is nuclear power plant. I want to explain how the unit is operated. So there is inside this each unit, you have 42 nuclear rods with uranium, so with fuel, which is working. But when you need to substitute those rods with new fuel, you take it out and you put it in a special ponds which cooling them for years. So they stay in the ponds, still being hot, and they cool down, and you have to circulate water. So what Russians did, they requested our personnel to remove water from those ponds because they thought that there are weapons inside them, which is absolutely stupid to think because this water is radioactive. So the personnel refused to do that, and several people were killed, brutally killed, for refusing to draw those ponds, so to remove this water. And this water is extremely important. If anything happened with pumps, this water is used to cool down the reactor itself. And that is exactly what happened in Fukushima. Because of an ability to cool down the reactor, the explosion happened. So our personnel is constantly intimidated by Russians, forcing them to violate procedures approved by International Atomic Energy Agency and our own Ukrainian regulation, and which is very strict how you operate the nuclear power plant. So what they have right now in the station, you can read it. I mean, again, that is I would like for you to understand that is what I'm saying is not just propaganda or like false information. It's confirmed by many experts, including Japanese one, that is exactly what is happening. That if you have people on the station, approximately 10,000 people, you have to rotate them. They must be operate the reactor being in a good shape of health, mental health, etc. But they are now assaulted by Russians. They kidnapped already 400 people, and they intimidate them, and they demand money from them to return them to homes. And this is what is happening. This is absolutely unacceptable, because if you have on this very sensitive equipment, you have people which cannot be guaranteed their mental health and their physical health, that may have consequences. So that's the latest news from this from the station. And if I can read it for you. So Russian military on July 18, they forcibly took away passes, security passes from 2 plant employees, used them to enter radiation zone of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant unit 2. They put inside weapons, they put inside grenades, bombs, they brought inside the unit. They're absolutely, it's not even imaginable to think what they were doing. So they put these grenades and weapons inside the unit and keep it there. So that is we have confirmed information that at least 14 pieces of this equipment inside the station. Why they were doing? Because they're afraid that Ukraine will try to force them out of the station. Of course we will. But the question is how? Because at any second, in any moment, they can blow it up. What will happen then, we have absolutely no idea. There are no security protocols on that. We have very extensive discussion with International Atomic Energy Agency. And at some moment in the past, several weeks ago, the monitoring system, automatic monitoring system, which is installed on the station and every unit, stopped working. We renew it. They receive now information about the security situation. Right now, there is no threat, but no one knows what will happen in any other moment, because we have seen many times since March missiles flying over the reactors. We have seen many times bombings done by their airplanes around the station and the city Energodar, which is close to the station. On March 2, the International Atomic Energy Agency developed a document. They call it 7 Pillars of Nuclear Security. I can read it, but everyone can find it on their website. 7 Pillars of Nuclear Security. That was ad hoc document because never before in the history of mankind there was a situation when you have a war and acting nuclear power plant. So if you read those 7 pillars, all of them, literally all of them, now violated by Russian Federation. So this is extremely dangerous. And another point of view that we have to take into account, the constant threat from Russia to use tactical nuclear weapons against Ukraine. Many times, Putin himself, Shoigu, Lavrov, and many of their officials, they were mentioning a possibility that if Ukraine will try to liberate its own territory, namely Crimea or Donetsk and Lugansk, which Russia considers their territory, so they will use tactical nuclear weapons. I refuse to imagine what will happen if there is a tactical nuclear bomb exploded over such a station as Zaporizhzhia, which is actually possible. We are not able to protect stations from every cruise or ballistic missiles Russia use. This is not possible, not just for us. It's not possible for any other country. There is no 100% anti-missile protection in the world. So we do have now special equipment installed on every station we have. Of course, we try to protect them with presence of military force. But when you have dealing with Russia, as I told you, they already use 3,000 missiles. This is absolutely enormous amount of weapons used against Ukraine. In addition to what I have said about Ukraine, I would like to draw attention to other businesses of Russian Federation with nuclear energy, which is, from my perspective, is very dangerous. So Russia is actively pursuing the construction of nuclear power plants around the globe in many other countries. For example, very recently, the high-level delegation from Myanmar visited, military junta visited Moscow, and they talked to Russia about construction of nuclear power plant in Myanmar. As well, Russians are now very active in Africa. They already began construction of nuclear power plant in Egypt. They are now talking to countries like Nigeria, Ethiopia, Zambia, etc., for construction of nuclear power plants. Normally, how Russians do this? They provide like a loan, $20–25 billion to each country for construction of nuclear power plant. Why they're doing this? Because nuclear power plant is very complex structure. When you build a nuclear power plant, it's just not an equipment. That means the supply of fuel, and supply of fuel should be done in a very, very cautious way, very special way. In Russian reactors, they use nuclear rods of 17 meters long. They should be supplied in a special casks. Those casks cannot be supplied easily. They can be supplied only from railroad with special cars, wagons for those. If you see it, it's like a fortress, or through ships. So imagine the distance in between production plants in Russia and Africa, and how those ships, how they will transfer all this highly enriched uranium around the globe. Then you have to deal with radioactive water. You have to deal with radioactive waste. You have to handle it. On each of Ukrainian nuclear power plants, we have storages for spent fuel. And if you look at it, this is very special construction, very thick concrete, very in a special way, because it must stand against any possible attack, any possible natural disaster for hundreds of years, because that's nature of uranium. Because to make it safe, you have to reprocess it or keep it as long as possible to reprocess it again. So we have such equipment in Zaporizhia, we have it in South Ukrainian nuclear power plant, and in Chernobyl. So that means that it is not just about the station, it's about the site where you have spent fuel, storages, when you have debris. We have several plants to process, specifically in Chernobyl, to process liquid waste and hard waste, nuclear waste. So similar way, it should be done in every nuclear power plant around the globe. And if you do it in a country where people has absolutely no idea about nuclear energy, you have to educate them. You have to translate all the regulation, all the manuals, which are thousands of pages, from language, official language of United Nations into the local language. You have to teach them to operate, that years and thousands of people will become attached to nuclear energy. And in some countries, specifically in Africa or in Asia, when it happens, we have absolutely no guarantees that they will not be used as terrorist attacks. And specifically, if war may happen in between those countries. So this is exactly nuclear proliferation of unimaginable scale. What we see now, and when it comes to Japan, it's up to you. I'm not in a position to criticize or to support the nuclear power use in Japan, but you have to ask yourself whether nuclear power plants in Japan are protected from possible nuclear missile attack from North Korea, for example. Is it safe enough if terrorist activity may happen with forces which are threatening security of Japan? So those issues, unfortunately, they have become very, very visible and sensitive right now during this attack on Ukraine. I would stop on this moment because we have very limited time, and please, I would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Quickly add that we have to be very thoughtful about what we are doing in other parts of the world. It's not just about Ukraine. This is a precedent. We don't want this precedent to become a norm then nuclear power plants are attacked by military force. This should be excluded once and forever for every country. Thank you very much.